Hey, it's Amethyst Virgo. So I'm here to talk about Libra. Okay, so first we know that Libra is ruled by if you're new or if you haven't been here for a while, check out the Signs Through the Houses series because I think I've done about 9 at this point. So I have Virgo and Scorpio and Aquarius and Capricorn and Gemini, etc. So check that out. So we know Venus is the ruling planet of Libra. So the planet Venus, let's talk about the planet first. We deal with, Venus can deal with social energy, right? Venus can deal with money and values. If we're talking about Taurus, Venus ruling Taurus, right? There's that part of it. There's Venus dealing with civility. There's Venus dealing with social aspects, social dynamics. Venus dealing with our ability to harmonize. Now we're getting closer to the Libra part of Venus, right? So Venus, we know, is considered to be our ability to come together with another person, our relatability, what we truly value, what we truly like. Sometimes you can see through Venus. Now, the important thing here is Libra as the sign. So what do we derive from Libra, right? Because we have to understand a planet and a sign. A planet rules a sign, but a planet also has its own function, no matter what sign it's in. And so this video can be helpful if you do have a planet in Libra. But if you're like, wait, but I have the sun in the 8th house in Libra, well, you might want to check out the 8th house video where I talk about the 8th house, or the 5th house video where I talk about the 5th house. So I cannot give personal interpretations. You cannot do that via YouTube. I have a venue for how I do that, services you can check out. I will answer basic questions. You can tell me about your placement and all that stuff, but I will not interpret via YouTube for many reasons. Okay, so Libra, we're dealing with diplomacy, perspective, right? The ability to understand that other people have ideas too. The understanding that other people have different experiences. And Libra does great at acknowledging that. This is a cardinal sign. A lot of people forget because, like I said, Libra is one of those signs I think that is pretty underrated or misunderstood. There's certain signs where I feel like people don't really get to the real meat of it. If Virgo was one of them as well, it's the same things repeated about Virgo. It's the same things repeated about Pisces. Same things repeated about Taurus and Libra. And it just, it doesn't really get to the meat of it because I feel like there's all this focus on Libra and, oh, they're about harmony and Libras are passive. These are the things people say. I don't have an issue with Libra. I have a Libra child, so I understand Libra, but, everybody in my house has a significant Libra placement. Everyone in my house has a significant Aries placement, except for me. Libra also has decans, right? So when we're talking about Libra energy, we want to understand that it's not everybody who's a Libra is not about romance and marriage and harmony. Some people are maybe more of the rational Libra, the Libra who likes to debate and think about multiple perspectives. We have to understand the fact that if we're dealing with a decan, right? Not technically. If we're dealing with a decan, then that means that there are Libras who are subruled by Mercury. There's a whole decan video. I don't want to go into decans. And then there's a Libra that is subruled by Uranus and Saturn. That where you can get more of the Libra who is more of the intellectual type, who maybe not be the type that's all worried about. You can have Libras who are more worried about their aesthetic, because understanding that Venus is a ruler of Libra, right? And we also can have people who are appearance is important, especially let's say if we have Libra ascendant, something like that. So in the chart, though, it can show the area where you want the most peace sometimes, where you want civility, where you're willing to collaborate, cooperate with others, where you're willing to listen in. Creative ways to make harmony. Some Libra energy people are really good with bringing people together, recognizing, oh, no, we're going to squash this right now. That's Libra energy. When somebody's getting in between something to mediate it and to get us to talk about it, that's Libra energy. Okay, Libra or not. And so we can really see like where a person tries to create some sense of relatability in their life or some type of partnership, or where in their life they might need a little bit more support. So again, Libra is not going to be significant in everyone's chart. You might just have Libra on the cusp of something and be curious. Okay. All right. So firstly, we say Libra. Okay. The first house, Libra rising, seeks to connect to other people. Okay. This is an instinct. I'll talk about the rising more. I have a rising part 3 video where I want us to understand more about the rising. And even in my approach, you'll see my second video that I made I graduated from my first video where I add more, but I still think some people need clarity of this. Why is it people view you a certain way? It is a part of your identity because of the way in which people even might describe you, right? There are people who don't feel connected to their rising, but there are some people where we describe them by their rising sign, right? There are some people where we think that their sun sign is something because of their rising sign. And it all has to do with the instinct, the person's natural instinct through their rising is how they approach life, okay? Now, appearance is enhanced due to the Venusian effect. You do tend to see the Libra rising person either naturally have somewhat of a good look to them. And I know good looks can be subjective, but there's usually like a universal quality because Venus is this planet that deals with the beauty of things, the look of them, the style and all of that. So you can sometimes see Libra risings have and if not a distinct look, they care about looking pleasant, okay? They care about the image a little bit more, okay? Remember, because the first house is also, on the cusp of the first house, we're dealing with body, right? So we can get indications for how someone views themselves physically through that lens. And sometimes you can get the Libran energy that does care about what people think. And if you care about what people think, then you're going to want to present well because you are a little bit more concerned with that, right? This person might also just draw a lot of attention. Now, Leo, I said that as well. But Leo, I think it's more so what Leo is doing, the Leo rising or Leo's look is once, you know, it might be a little bit more trendy. I think the Libran look might be a little bit more, I would describe it. You can see more of like, if you ever think about someone who's just well polished, I think that's more of a Libran look, right? Not trying to shock you like Aquarius or rising or something like that. But because of that, there's a natural, especially for what if a person has Venus and Libra conjunct that ascendant, there tends to be people are going to treat them favorably or like them or immediately look at them and want to be around them, sometimes because of their appearance. And by appearance, I don't think it always has to mean you know, superficiality. I think it sometimes can just be the person appears pleasant to be around. They appear likable. People like people who are likable. And sometimes Libra risings can get away with that because people naturally view them as someone they want to be around. Like they don't feel as like, oh, this person's going to judge me or dislike me, because Libra rising energy, Venus is leading that. And so there's going to be a person who's more likely to reach out, a person more likely to say, hey, how you doing? To kind of invite you in a little bit more. Now, the second house, okay, so if you have Libra on the second house cusp, you could benefit from support or partnerships or business partners in making your money. Or even if you're a completely independent person, you have somebody in your corner that has helped you sustain, who has helped you get to the point where you want to get to in life. Okay. If the examples like the CEO who relies on his good assistant, right? The CEO, the person who has someone or their parents help set them up for success. So even when you want to be independent, or even a person, it could be through marriage, through somehow they benefit from the assets perhaps of another person. And they're always, they might always feel like there's always someone believing in you. There's always someone helping you out, or there's some force. There's always some kind of way in which you kind of allow themselves to kind of give to you in a way or help you out. Doesn't always mean they're shelling out money, but it can mean, oh, someone says, oh yeah, I didn't have a place to live, but my so-and-so let me live with them, right? And then you have another example. It wouldn't just be one example. It would typically be more than one. And the other thing I would say about Libra on the second house cusp would mean also the way in which you make your money likely has something to do with people, talking, understanding the perspectives of others would be essential to this type of, this being on the cusp of the second house. That's a way in which they will, you might even be someone who works with, mediation, counseling, marriage counseling, or you're just someone that your work inspires people to feel a little bit more, people to come together, inspires harmony. Libra energy can inspire people to feel better. Because remember, Venus also just wants us kind of just to be relaxed, right? You can see so many different ways here in which a person, if they're a second house, Libra's on the second house cusp, you can see a person who, so if Libra's on the second house cusp, they could be a Virgo from the first house rising, right? You could have a person who is good with healing, massages, things of that nature, because Virgo is an energy related to health. And we remember, anytime with the first house there, we start to get some idea, someone's we're talking about the body. We've been talking about the physical self as well. The third, okay, cares about the thoughts of other people. So by cares, I think it means now we're not just dealing with the Gemini need to disseminate information. We're now caring about, I care about your opinion. I want to talk to you. And this could be the person who sometimes maybe they don't get the hint all that much either, but it's like they need to hear from other people. They might think something, but also need to double check. Let me just double check. Let me see if someone else agrees with me. This person might care also about, they would have cared maybe about praise in school. They would have cared about someone saying, yes, you're doing a good job. They use language to connect to other people. This could be a person good with their words. They don't, you know how sometimes some people can just be really, really blunt and get right to the chase, and maybe they're really direct, but it doesn't bring you into their opinion. It doesn't bring you in. Well, Libra energy in the third house would bring you in a little bit more, right? Because they want to see what you think, and they want to create good relationships with you based on the conversation. So these are people who could be really good orators, or good at getting other people to understand where they're coming from. Good also at breaking things down. Remember, Libra energy can be good at that analysis piece, the duality of understanding two perspectives and being balanced. Yeah, I said mentally. Yes, it can be very talkative, but it's not just to get information out. It is to the relationship. And though that can sound better than like, oh, this sounds a little bit better than Gemini, we have to understand though that Gemini is supposed to be in the third house, and Gemini there is delivering the information. It's being objective. Libra energy sometimes won't be as objective because it wants so much to connect. So sometimes you can find bias, even though Libra doesn't want to be biased. You can find people who become a little bit too biased in this pressure to see duality and to see both sides, and people who could be a little bit indecisive in what they think and what they know. So it is important with Libra energy to sometimes realize if you are tipping in one way or over the other, because sometimes it can mean like a person is uncomfortable with really sharing out what they think because they don't want to offend other people. But it is sometimes important to tap into that Libra energy of decisiveness. Libra can sometimes be indecisive with the ability to see both things. But again, at the end of the day, Libra is a cardinal energy with the ability to move things forward, with the ability to convince you. People forget that about Libra, the convincing part. Right? Libras are good talkers. And Venus, they're trying to smooth everything over. And by the end of it, you might be agreeing to something you didn't even realize, okay? Libra can be good with that. The fourth house prefers emotional sense of stability. Sense of balance. They're like, I don't want the drama. They don't want the drama. They don't want to hear it. They don't want to deal with it. And it can mean good. It can mean a person who maybe emotionally knows to smooth things over. A person who's like, oh, no. Me and my siblings are going to get along. We're going to have a family meeting. Like, you could have an extreme like that. The other extreme could be a person who just not as comfortable with serious emotions. They're just not as comfortable. There's a lot of, maybe they even experience some conflict in their life. Now, again, I have the IC video. If you're really concerned about if you're Libra IC, check out the IC MC video. If this is more just like, oh, you have a Libra planet in the chart, something like that. It really would depend, right? If you have more positive planets, in that house, maybe you were taught mediation, you felt supported, you felt listened to, you felt like everyone's perspective in the household was taken into consideration. If you have more intense planets, Saturn maybe, or Mars, and depending on other factors, maybe you feel like there was always somebody in the family who, didn't want you to really share your deeper feelings. So now it's easier to deal with the more lighthearted Venusian energy when it comes to emotions. In partnerships, you can sometimes be surface level. If you're not careful with Venus energy, especially Libra. Conflict could also have manifested in the home, where you felt as if you had to suppress deeper feelings. You might have been told, no, you can't say that. You can't say that. Or you're being negative. I mean, you're really just saying, hey, here's how I feel. So it can manifest. And that's why the ICMC energy is so important. So if someone does have Libra on the cusp of the fourth house and they have Aries on the MC, that's why a lot of times some people are completely different in their public life than they are at home. They've spent so many years being a certain role within their house that now when they go out into the world, they want the opposite experience. They could have also witnessed that they had a parent in the family who smoothed everything over. Like maybe that's just your natural, your natural way of being is you've watched your parents smooth everything over. Oh, it's okay. Don't worry about it. It's okay. We're going to be okay. But not diving a little bit deeper. So sometimes you can see experiences with that. And then of course, if the person has, let's say we're using whole signs and the person has Libra in the 4th house. Well, the next they'd have Scorpio in the 5th house. So again, we're dealing with someone who may not always have the really intense feelings brought into the forefront, right? Because you would, then you would keep going up, and you obviously would be like, well, wait, you're going to get to a point where you get to a person who could sometimes need to understand the deeper parts, deeper ramifications of their emotions, and not just the most positive parts of it. But there can be some good. 5th house people, okay, these people prefer companionship. They like it. They love it. So this usually we talk about the 5th house is personal confidence. But with Libra here, we're now thinking of Venus energy. So not only could the person be creative, not only could the person do things creatively that bring people together, harmonize people, musicians, or people who create certain types of things, community events, right? You can have a person who cares about the community or cares about the community aspect of fun. And that's where they get their confidence from. Some people like being around others. It gives them a sense of happiness. This person could be a good friend, probably somebody really fun to be around, someone who's kind of like, yeah, sure, let's go, let's do this. They're open, as opposed to sometimes you can see other signs where someone has Capricorn on the cusp of the 5th house, like many of us Virgo risings, a little bit more specific about what we want to do. But you might have a person here that's a little bit more flexible, especially since if we're using whole signs, they would have to have a Gemini rising, and then it would need, and they would have Capricorn on the cusp of the 8th house. So what do we be dealing here? This person could struggle with deeper connections though. So we can have a fun person, like let's have fun. And we think because they're great at bringing people together, they're great at throwing parties for their friends, they're great at, feeling good around other people, that they can be great in a relationship. Remember, the 5th house can be that house of flirtation and dating. So you can get people who are like, this person's fun, you relate to them. But then once you get to a relationship, there's a different side to them. Okay, because especially if we're dealing with Gemini rising, we're dealing with Sagittarius on the cusp of the 7th house. So if you have Sag on the cusp of the 7th house, then you have Capricorn cusp of the 8th house. Those energies aren't necessarily always pouring. They can be beneficial when we're talking about romance. That's not always an open display of understanding your deeper, more intimate feelings. There could be a little bit more of a freedom need from the Sagittarius and the 7th house cusp. And Capricorn, I already have a video of Capricorn through the signs. You can watch that if you have Capricorn in the 8th house cusp. You can be more guarded, more traditional when it comes to certain things. So you can see people's duality with astrology. You can be like, oh, wow, I thought you were this, but you're not, because different houses create different effects. So you would have to look into that. But it could be like a fun person who enjoys people as a part of their building. Sometimes you would just have to be careful not to overdo it with people, always needing to be around folks in order to feel confident. That would be something I would say. The 6th house, I would say the work and daily life conflict-free. Prefers it to be diplomatic. They might also get other people's opinions though before they do certain things. Remember, the 6th house is a functional house. We're dealing with responsibilities and things that we have to do. And so sometimes this could be a person who, they're trying to get in with the flow of life because, if they were Venus, if they have Libra there. Okay, so if Libra is on the cusp of the 6th house, that means Scorpio, whole signs, we're using whole signs. This is easier for me to talk whole signs for these types of videos. Chart readings, I do Placidus unless someone requests whole signs. So Scorpio on the cusp of the 7th house, so Taurus rising, cool. So, well, Taurus risings don't like all that drama, intense, heavy things either. Like there's a Venusian need for life to kind of be simple, life to feel calm. Life should not feel dramatic, and there's an emotional need to kind of get away from that type of energy. And so what that says is this is a person who likes less stress. They also have Aquarius in the 10th house maybe. Well, they need complacency. They shy away from things that are too restrictive. They may sometimes want help. This could be a Libra in the 6th house person, like, no, you're growing up in your family, you're like, I'm not doing all these chores by myself. Right? That is 6th house Libra energy, Taurus rising. This need for like, I'm going to do the work, but no, that's not fair. And you can get a kind of like more of this. Remember, the 6th house is also this kind of Mercurian energy going through this person. So there would be a focus a lot on this need for fairness and for things to be in a certain way. All right, so I have a whole video about the ascendant descendant sign that goes this thematic about that. But Libra on the cusp of the seventh house, well, you would be an Aries rising. And so you are, if we're thinking just about the cusp, you're facing having to understand people who are more that diplomatic, who can you're working on your people skills. If you're an Aries rising and you feel that strongly, maybe you have other elements in the chart that other planets in Aries, you might sometimes feel compelled or curious about people who are more like, oh wow, how do they still get their way in life? But they bring other people in, or they focus on relationship a lot. Because if you're an Aries rising, you're instinctually doing things for self. You're instinctually putting yourself first. It does not mean it's always a selfish energy, but it's this need, even more so sometimes in the Aries sun. I've seen Aries risings be more active, be more physical, right? Even physical, like athletic. I've seen some of these people, depending on the placement of the sun, you've seen some Aries rising suns where, they have the Aries nature, but it doesn't feel very Aries, where the Aries rising person I've seen, just because of other elements of the chart, actually embody a lot of that Mars type energy in how they identify and how they go through life. So it can be very instinctual, but at the end of the day, we all need balance. And so the opposite sign energy is also your ability to relate to other people, to see the importance in relationship. You have an interesting obligation here to yourself with Aries on the first house cusp, right? For yourself, but also to understand the nature of relationships. And I don't think it always has to mean getting in a bunch of relationships, but it can sometimes be relating, understanding other people, not just moving forward with what you want, but seeing how you can still get what you want while also listening to what other people need. That's a possibility as well. Of course, if you have Libra in the actual house, if you have it in there, there's going to be more themes around relationships. Seventh house can be how you treat relationships, right? If someone has, even if someone has Saturn in Libra in the seventh house, they're probably really good business people. Because remember, seventh house can also be business. Saturn, decisions, right? Parental, disciplinary energy. And not discipline just like a parent, but discipline is like, you can be disciplined with Saturn. And Saturn energy, you do need discipline when you're dealing with business and money. So in that case, this person, Saturn and Libra, they're doing, their ability to relate to people is going to be more based on, partnership and business, or even politics or something like that. It might not always be a romantic theme to the seventh house, right? So I want to be clear on that. But Saturn can bring loss and devastation in a relationship or marriage. It can bring loss, or it could bring divorce, or it could, and I don't want to scare anybody who has Saturn there. I've seen various ways in which it can come about. So you don't need to worry. Like I always tell people, in order for something to likely happen, we do have to usually examine the rest of the chart, because sometimes you can have a placement that actually counteracts another placement. But my point with saying this is that this person is learning how to do business. This person is learning how to harmonize those types of relationships. See what I'm saying? So it will depend what you have in the seventh house. And I do need to do that seventh house video soon. What planet is there is going to make more of an indication, give you more of an indication, especially when we're dealing with Libra energy. But it's always going to have something to do with your ability to relate, come together, partner, understand, be aware of other people. And whether it's a conflict, whether it's control, whether it's harmonious, whether you have influence in those partnerships, will depend on what planet is in that seventh house. Now the eighth house. So if you have a Libra in the eighth house, cusp in whatever, now we are also still talking about marriage or some type of legal commitment. Once you get to seventh and the eighth house, we start to talk about the concept of marriage. Don't want to get married? Cool, don't. I'm not telling you have to. But I'm saying this is, people still get married. People still have that as a goal, some folks. So the seventh house is more of the, think of that as the courting process. It's the marriage, it's the wedding. It's more of the Venusian Venus energy of seventh. The eighth house, we're thinking Mars and Pluto. Well, what happens with Pluto? Pluto consumes. Symbolically, what happens is people are joining their assets together. They're combining their assets together. Remember, the eighth house, if you want to think about it, all the topics of the eighth house, it's all about coming together with somebody else, or getting something from somebody else, or getting resources, or receiving. Not always in a bad way. It could be about receiving power, right? Maybe you've worked for something and you receive it. So it doesn't always mean you're just getting it. So this person, Libra on the cusp, remember Libra dealing with harmony, in some way, this person is allured and intrigued by the idea of partnership. This is a person who tends to want intimacy automatically, perhaps even. You know how some people are more specific. You have people who are more like different depending on different partners. They might have different patterns. They might have different ways in which they want to be in a relationship with you. They might say, oh yeah, I take this person serious, but not this type of person. You know, people can sometimes do that. But with Libra, it's almost like almost every relationship might have this element of intimacy that they want. Their money can sometimes be tied up with other people. So this can definitely be a person sometimes who, depending on other factors, let me give an example. It could be a person who feels like they've always received money. They've always received, maybe they Venus and Libra. They're like, well, my parents have paid for everything, right? You could be like a person who's like, oh yeah, my parents paid for everything. Because the 8th house can also be inheritance, okay? Now, traditionally, 4th house was more inheritance of property, and the 8th house could be more the financial inheritance. But so, you know, this could be a person who, because remember, this person, when maybe they spend through money quick, they can't manage their own money, so their parents give them money. They would have Aries on the cusp of the 2nd house. Maybe they're just too finicky with finances, but they receive, right? So now you might not be that. You could be a person like, whoa, I'm responsible. Maybe your partner brings something to you, especially if someone has Jupiter in Libra in the 8th house. Your marriage can bring you stability. It can bring you even greater opportunities. We think of Jupiter as being that luck aspect sometimes. You know, but yeah, this person I think would be willing to kind of, they like intimate relationships. And sometimes Libra doesn't want to go that deep. Here's what to understand about Libra and Venus. Venus doesn't always want to go deep. It doesn't want to. That's why Venus and Scorpio is considered to be in fall. It doesn't want to go that deep. Venus is about harmony, relaxation. It's about getting what you can see. Taurus, it's about harmony. Libra, like Venus isn't about, let's talk about your wounds and your trauma and all of that. Now, again, it depends on the placement. But in general, we were just to take Venus by itself. So what's happening here is sometimes this could be people who want this intimacy, but also have to understand how far they're willing to go. They can commit to something before they're even ready, some of them, okay? And so, but also sometimes the benefit could be people who have really good friendships and they really are there for them, for the person. They really give in to helping them understand and cope with something. Because again, if Libra energy isn't usually good with crisis, I've said before, I think Scorpio energy is good with crisis in comparison. And because Scorpio, Mars and Pluto, I've seen Scorpio energy, I've seen Scorpio people just be like, what needs to happen? And they just swoop in and it's like, wow, that's a crazy situation. Not all Scorpios, but I'm saying Scorpios kind of always living in an internal, I wouldn't say an internal crisis, but internally there's so much depth going on there. There's so much internalization of things that sometimes they want to symbolically use that energy and handle the things outside of themselves in a way to cope with that. But anyway, yeah, so sometimes you can see that. You can see either surface level. It wouldn't be at surface level, but you have to be careful because if you're always in intimate relationships with people, you sometimes have to understand that you do have to have some boundaries there, right? But I do think that when it's well-rounded energy, you probably could have a person who has really good Libra energy with their even friends and associations. They're really trustworthy. They're there for other people. They care. It's not just about the Libra. Hey, let me just invite you somewhere. Let's just have this talk about something. It's a little bit deeper of an intense connection if you have eighth house Libra energy. Or this want, you desire it. And if you desire something, you typically can get it. So even if you are a person that needs to work on that Libra energy, you can get there because the 8th house is going to compel you, especially if there's planets there, to really get yourself intricately embedded in what it is that you emotionally feel a connection to. Now, the 9th house, okay. I would say that these folks can learn a lot about life through their relationships with other people, in relation to other people. You can have a belief and then say, but wait, I met this other person when I was traveling and that person actually had a different experience and I've learned this. Like these are the people that tend to learn a lot from other people and use it as a way to kind of allow it to become a part of their own belief system, right? These are people that can be influenced by other people. Now, influenced by other people doesn't always mean bad. If you're following other people blindly and trying to be something you're not, that's a problem. But people influence us every day. We get influenced by people all the time who make us think something we never thought before, who support us, who make us just see a different part of ourselves. So that is important. There's nothing wrong with being influenced by people, the right people, right? And the right people aren't going to ask you to do anything you're uncomfortable with anyway. But you're also willing to listen to other people's experiences, okay? Open to their beliefs, but yet it can be unclear what the individual themselves believe. We have to be careful here. Again, the influence is great. But sometimes, remember, we understand Libra energy why can Libra energy be indecisive? Venus wants relaxation. And if something is too difficult to deal with, Venus might not want to deal with it. And so what we have to understand here is sometimes this could be the person, especially let's say there's planets there, let's say there's Mercury in Libra ninth house. I kind of like that placement. I think that could be really good for people skills, for also helping people see vast things. Mercury in the ninth house can be really good for like communicating things in a way where you're giving information, but you're helping people see the bigger picture of it too. You're not just literally doling out information. But sometimes, depending on the placement, the person has to be careful, especially if there's an aspect or square to a planet within this house. And you want to make sure that you're clear on what you believe, because you don't want to be so ambivalent, so Venusian that you're like, I believe everything. And some people, how do I say this? It is possible to be multifaceted. It is possible to believe multiple things. It is possible to have an open mind. But if you're trying to really make decisions, it's important here for Libra to know where they stand, because you could get caught up in everybody you're in a relationship with. You take on their beliefs. Oh, you're now vegan. Oh, you're now practicing this religion. Oh, you're now a minimalist because of the relationship. So you do have to be careful of the Venus energy, Libra energy in ninth house, because remember, ninth is beliefs, and it is, even the way in which a person chooses to live their life, journeys, traveling. Sometimes Libra ninth house people, you guys could be really good at, especially if there's a planet there, with even peacemaking, a good place of someone who can make legal and moral decisions. Okay, so again, well aspected energy though, right? Because everything is baseline until we look at the specifics of the chart. We can't do that on YouTube, okay? I'm not doing it on YouTube. So this could also be a great place for a person who's a mediator or a life coach, but it's positive energy. I've done charts for people before who want to be coaches. And I'll say some people, it's like, oh, you can go deep. You can talk about trauma, and you can help people really manifest through some of the pain they've been through. That's usually people who have more of that scorpionic energy or Capricorn energy in the chart. They're more intricate in that. Maybe even Virgo to some extent as well, depending on where the Virgo energy is. But people when I start to see people want to be life coaches, and I see Libra energy, I see Sag energy kind of too, but definitely Libra or Leo energy. Pisces to some extent as well. I'm like, okay, that energy tends to want to deal more with the positive of coaching, not necessarily the deep wounds from the past. So this could be energy for somebody who's good at making decisions, mediation, things of that nature. Now, one thing that I would say is the 10th house Libra. So 10th house, we're dealing with goals. And so sometimes you'll see a Libra who's more Saturnian in the 10th house. If somebody were to be a judge, a decision maker, somebody who comes to the table and makes the decisions for other people, or gets everyone on the same board. So ninth house is more of that energy of, let's improve your life. Let's improve your mind state. Let's teach you the knowledge and the truth about life. The 10th house is obviously earth energy, Saturn. So what we're dealing with here is like, this could be a person that cares a lot about justice, cares a lot about their career, has something to do with justice. The ninth house energy can also mean a person who is very fair, or that's one of their core belief systems. I forgot to say that. Now think about it like this. If you were using whole signs, especially, the 10th house Libra person would have a Capricorn rising. And so this can be a great placement for someone who is in a more serious field, someone who has to, understand, have pretty good people skills. We're dealing with Libra energy, but also hold their ground. So this isn't the fluffy people type of energy. It's not the, hey, everybody, let's hug when I meet you. It's I understand that we're both here to come to a certain understanding, goal setting. You might understand, like when you come to the table with someone that you work with, all right, let's get down to business. Okay, you want this and I want this. Okay, let me dole out. This is where you can see Libra energy have that more cardinal approach, because a lot of times we forget about the cardinal energy of Libra. It's not just they're passive, they don't want to deal with conflict. Okay, some people, but understand the energy, not the people. When we stop thinking about people that you don't like, your parent, whatever some of y'all going through, your parents, your grandmom, your whoever, your brother, your boyfriend. Like when you stop thinking of astrology as the people, I know it's hard because that's who we've been around. You're gonna get more if you're trying to actually understand the field of it. Yeah, this person is respected though. They're liked and respected in whatever they do. So if you are someone with those placements, you need to embrace your power. Capricorn risings are typically seen as mature. Yeah, y'all might be seen as serious, but that means you have to get into a position that's going to allow you to move up and allow you to use your people skills and your mind and your ability to deliberate. Be somewhere where they allow you to make decisions. It's going to help you because you're already going to be entrusted most likely. And also you can be respected well. And also you're seen as fair. If we're talking, this is a person who understands, this might be the person who's very strategic. You understand that it's important to have good relationships with other people in order to get ahead. So use that to your benefit. Libra in the 11th house. Okay. So Libra wants to be social here. Okay. And we move away from the one-to-one relationships that are prioritized in the 7th house of Libra. And move on to wanting to be favorable among groups. Now this can lead to a person who has a pretty decent personality can benefit from this. Everyone likes you. Now, sometimes if everyone likes you, it can be good. But sometimes people don't really know you, meaning it can sometimes mean that people have a lot of fun around you. You're the cool person to be around. People feel they can relate to you, but they don't know who you really are. Why? Because remember what I keep telling people, certain signs belong in certain houses. So even if it works for you, we have to understand that Libra is going to function its highest, depending on what's there and other aspects, in the 7th house, the one-to-one partnership, the let's listen to each other one-on-one type of energy. Now, what we typically will see with Libra is you'll see a lot of people who don't have that because remember, we have to understand there's different decans of Libra. So you are going to see some Libras that are very social, some Libra energy that's very social and it needs to be liked, but some Libra energy isn't like that. Well, anyway, these people who are well liked in their group associations, they can move up pretty fast sometimes, especially they're well liked in terms of anything that requires them to have to, in anything that is more, what's the word I want to say? Free in nature, free, if they're part of a social group, if they have to make certain decisions on maybe a travel club, Sagittarius rising, we're using whole signs. This would be a Sag rising. Okay. So this could be a person who, is very, open about wanting to get everything together for everyone. Or his Sag rising likes to kind of do that anyway. Like, I'm going to help everybody in a big way, right? Now, different than their other signs, the other mutables help in different ways. Mutables, it's a whole different conversation. But has to be a part of certain things, invited out a lot. This person can have a lot of social capital, but sometimes it can feel like people, like I said, don't really know them, especially if they're a Sag rising, they would have Gemini in the 7th house cusp. Okay, so Gemini, it functions in the 3rd house. Gemini in the 7th house, okay, communication is really important to these people. But remember, we have to also understand the need for Libra energy to connect, to truly understand. And can Libra energy truly understand everybody within a group dynamic? That is why sometimes it can be hard to really feel like you know these individuals. And if they're that Sag rising, again, Sag risings are leading through opinion. We're leading through opinion. You're leading through truth, your personal truth. And those Sag risings can be great at motivating us to think along the lines of something that is more universal. No, man, that's not true. We're going to talk about like this, or we need to do something because of this. And if that's the case, sometimes it can mean you don't always feel from these people. You might not always feel understood, especially if you have any like Sun square Neptune, any aspects to Neptune where your image is always feels off, or people don't really truly understand who you might be. But it's good for social reasons. It's good for people liking you and listening to you. You can be listened to really well if you have these placements in the 11th house in particular. Now, lastly, Libra in the 12th house. Okay, so we have to understand that Libra is a pretty open sign, in my opinion, right? Venus is pretty open energy. We see it, we feel it. It doesn't hide. It wants to be transparent, especially we're dealing with Venus if it's in Taurus, for sure. So if you're Libra in this 12th house, you might be on some type of soul mission to learn how to see unions for what they really are. You may feel lost in relationships until you understand that. You might continuously have experiences where you don't understand, you just can't get on the same page as someone else. You care about relationships from a deep yearning you feel to be a part of it. But Libra, it's so weird because the 12th house can be very introspective. And yes, it's compassion. And yes, it's our gift, us finding what inside ourselves we have willing to give to the world. We have Neptune energy here. So we have to understand there's a benevolent need here. However, we also know that the 12th house is also hidden thoughts, secrets. Secrets, different than, I feel like secrets are 12th. And I think secretive energies maybe 8th, okay? I don't know, think about how I want to phrase that. My point is that you are, from a karmic lens, again, karma can show up many ways in the chart. So please note that there's many other ways, but it's almost like the 12th house gives you that chance to understand. You're supposed to understand this a little bit deeper than everything else. But what happens is life is not meant to, you're not going to be given anything on a silver platter. Some people are born rich, but nothing, even people who are rich and people who have a lot, there's certain things that they go through. Like nobody can hand it to you. Nobody can hand it to you. You have to do it. You have to go through the uncomfortable experiences and the repeat situations. So a lot of times in the 12th house, because it's karmically linked, just like the retrogrades can be. Because it's karmically linked, what happens is things keep happening. Wow, this is happening again, this is happening again, this is happening again. The karmic energy there is not learning the lesson. You seek soul connections to people, but you can have a fear or you don't understand your role within relationships. It's weird. You're like, I want this, but then when I get in this relationship, there's something I don't truly understand about myself or I don't understand about this person. And I don't think it means to keep dating. I don't think it means you even have to, Libra energy doesn't always have to mean about romance. It does mean that you have to open your eyes up and not just blindly. When you want something so deep inside, you sometimes can accept a lot of different things, right? Remember that benevolence of the 12th house, the uncertainty of the 12th house can sometimes make us lead into things that we don't want, but we haven't lifted the veil to understand what we truly want. And so we haven't empowered ourselves yet from the 12th house when we have not done that. So it's very important for you to know what you're seeking. And then you're going to start to see that you get more of these soul connections. You get more of these soulmate relationships that you want. And soulmates don't always have to mean, again, romance. Okay. People talk about twin flames. It's a whole different conversation. Now, this could be a Scorpio rising person. This would be a Scorpio rising, especially signs. Intense experiences, but you may wonder why you're struggling to fully receive. Because remember, the Scorpio rising person is going through a series of feeling like everything is happening to them sometimes. Transformative, like they're forced to deal with certain emotions early on in life, sometimes to no fault of their own. Because remember, instinct. And if rising can be known as our instinctual nature about how we view life or how we're seen, it's like we're constantly seen and treated as if we're intense. And you attract people who are intense. But remember, you really truly need a mental communication with people. So you could be very confused. Here's what I mean by mental communication. Libra's an air sign, 12th house. So we're really supposed to connect. You're really supposed to connect. You're really supposed to get perspective. That's why I said, don't just go to any relationship or any friendship. When you feel, especially if a person has planets in Libra and they want partnership so much, remember, if you don't know what you want, you're going to go for anything. And that's why you feel lost. But remember, so also, let me see what I was going to say here. If they were Scorpio rising, they're Taurus. They have Taurus on the 7th house cusp. And then they might have Gemini on the cusp of the 8th house. Again, I'm using whole signs to make this easy. Well, Gemini on the cusp of the 8th house can be great for a person communicating mentally, getting deep mentally, being able to get people to talk to them as well. You're supposed to get a deeper understanding of people through a mental connection if you have Libra on the 12th house, because of where everything else in your chart would probably be set up. So it's not about just wanting it that you might want early in life. I just want a relationship. I want a soulmate. You have to stop wanting and you have to start connecting. That's the missing piece there if you have Libra on the cusp of the 12th house. All right, so that is it for this video. Please feel free to like, subscribe. Also, check out the other videos. I have a whole series of the signs through the houses, and that's it for this time.